Yeah, I think it's important to, so that's one thing I've definitely learned now that I'm on my own is that people will give you unsolicited advice every single day of the week, especially people who can never do what you do. They will tell you exactly how to do something that they can never do. Is that true? I mean, isn't that true? I mean, you cannot listen to everybody. I've had situations recently where it's sad because when you're stepping into your purpose, you may lose friends. You may lose friends. You may lose people in your village because they may not believe in what you got going on, or they wish they could do what you're doing.
What up, though, Black Fridays family? Welcome back to another installment of the Black Fridays podcast. Before we start today's episode, I need you to make sure that you go subscribe, like, comment, share with a friend all the previous episodes, and make sure that you continue to stay tuned in to all the excellence that we see here on the podcast. Now, with that out the way, I got a very special guest in the building today. Welcome, Miss Geralyn Gaines. How you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good. It's nice to see you after, what has it been, like 10 years?
It's been forever.
It's been forever.
We ain't gonna tell people how long ago we graduated, but
that's true. Denzel's older than me, though. I have to make that very clear.
Allegedly. But so keeping it G. You have started your own speaking opportunity where you're speaking life into people in their careers. So could you start with telling us a little bit more about who is Geralyn, and then also how are you keeping it G?
Yeah, so Geralyn is I'm a lover of life, lover of people. I absolutely love engaging with folks, and keeping it G is all about keeping it real, staying grounded, and true to yourself while upholding your values despite challenges. So showing up as yourself, no matter what the consequences are, positive or negative, but also represents resilience and strength and integrity. Integrity is one of the most important qualities to me, that when you say that you're going to do something, you're actually going to do it. So it allows you to build your confidence up and get out of your own way. And it's just really important to not only use your voice, but also encourage others to find and amplify theirs. So keeping it G is all about, like I said, getting out of your own way, knowing your value, knowing your strengths, and asserting yourself as an expert.
And a word that you are big on, something that you live throughout your business, is self-advocacy.
Self-advocacy.
So could you break that down as to what it means to self-advocate?
Yeah, so keeping it G is how I define self-advocacy. So like I said, keeping it real, staying grounded regardless of the situation. And self-advocacy is exactly how it sounds. Advocating for yourself, speaking up for yourself, speaking up for others. I found that so many people in corporate America, so I was at Ford Motor Company for 9 years, so many people in corporate America do not advance quickly because they are afraid to say something, afraid to rock the boat, afraid to assert their value or to share the contributions that they've made. And I'm the type of person that I'm like, well, if we don't ask, we're not going to get what we want. So I want to encourage people to go out there, ask for what they want, and just get it.
For sure. And it's, I worked in automotive as well, so I know how it goes, especially in that corporate setting. Yeah. And can be archaic at times in terms of thought processes. Is archaic. Is archaic in terms of thought processes, in terms of systems, in terms of how people go about doing things, and especially the part that you mentioned, people don't speak up for themselves most of the time. Why in a corporate setting, when I'm just playing devil's advocate, when I could just show up, do my job, and keep it pushing, why do I need to speak up for myself? Like, why is that even important to me when I'm still getting the same paycheck?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people, they're okay with that. They're having a more mundane day-to-day. But I think if you're looking to advance in corporate America, you have to make yourself known. You have to be visible. You have to have a brand. And literally day one of corporate, my boss actually shared this recently. He said, nobody cares about your career more than you do. And I remember feeling, I didn't really like that feeling. It felt kind of icky, but he was right. Like, nobody cares more than I do. So I have to have a huge hand in driving my own career because nobody's going to make it happen for me. So I believe that you have to have a very proactive approach when it comes to professional development. There's no one that's going to be like, walking past you one day and be like, hey, do you want this opportunity? That could happen to some people, but you have to have a brand that represents, hey, I can do this job and I can do it above and exceedingly above anything that, any opportunity that has been given to me. right? You want to be able to knock it out of the park, because I know that so many people have the abilities and the capabilities to knock roles out of the park, but they're afraid to say, hey, I want this role, or what skills do I need to be successful in this role? That's one thing that I knew exactly how I was driving my career. I was at Ford, like I said, for 9 years, and I had 7 different jobs within the 9 years because I wanted a multitude of experiences. I was in our field organization. I don't like the way that sounds anymore, but I was in our field organization for 5 years, consulting with dealers in marketing, sales, and service. And then I came up here to the general office to work in marketing, But when I came from the field, it was actually, we're talking about this a little bit. It was during the George Floyd era. And, magically all these Black folks are starting to get promoted, and, some promotions long overdue. And I remember my boss asked me like, hey, would you be willing to go work in global marketing and media? I'm like, sure, but I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have a media degree. Of course, I'm going to step into it. But it was a great opportunity for me to leave the East Coast, which I would have been there for a little while, and step into world headquarters, but even if it was virtually, because there's a huge delineation between the field organization and what's happening in the general office. Like, for example, you may feel like you're on an island in the field because you can't participate in employee resource groups like you would be able to if you were in person. Right. You don't necessarily have the community because you may be on an island consulting dealers in middle of nowhere, upstate New York, some weird city name, right? Yeah. But I think it's really, really important to express that you want something more. Because I know a lot of friends that have gotten stuck in the field because they haven't said, hey, I actually want to come to the general office and learn more. Because Ford's obviously a humongous company. I think it's like 150,000 employees. There are so many different opportunities besides what's going on here in the field. So I was I let my bosses know ahead of time, like, hey, I want to go to the general office, but it has to be the right opportunity, and the global marketing and media job was the right opportunity. Got you.
And so we're going to take a pause because I want to introduce you to my favorite part of Black Fridays, which is Freestyle Fridays.
Freestyle Fridays, yes. I'm ready for that.
Yeah, so I hope you got your 16 ready. You got your 16 ready? Your 16 bars?
No, I don't have my 16 bars ready. No, I do not have my 16 bars ready, but we can ask me the rapid fire questions.
There we go. Yes. All right, cool. Say less. All right, so I would like for you to describe your business, Keeping It G, as a food. What food would you say that it is?
My favorite food is key lime pie.
Okay.
So I think that, with key lime pie, you have something that's tart and then you get that sweet. I think that self-advocacy is something that's not easy. It can be very tart. It can be very iffy. It can be, you have all this, I guess, doubt in yourself about whether or not this is going to work out. But I think the sweetness is when you realize that when you step out on faith and you get stuff done, you're like, oh, I wish I would have done that sooner. So I think that it is tart and that it's difficult, but it's sweet and that it's going to be worth it.
I like that. I like how you flipped that.
I love key lime. Love key lime pie.
Good job. Where's your favorite place to travel?
Thailand it's been my favorite vacation thus far. I went in 2019. We flew into Bangkok. We did Phuket and we did the Phi Phi Islands, the most beautiful islands I've ever seen. Definitely Bangkok. Definitely Thailand, but you all do not go to Thailand in April. It's the hottest month. Do not recommend. My face was melting by the end of it, but it's lovely. The food is amazing. People are cool. And yeah, I would go back. 1,000% go back.
Dope. If you could be any superhero or cartoon character, who would you be?
Is this horrible? I don't know a lot of superheroes or characters.
You ain't grew up watching cartoons?
I really didn't. Not like superhero cartoons. Okay. More of like maybe Doug or Hey Arnold but not necessarily like a superhero. I can't answer that one, Denzel. Sorry.
You could do regular cartoon.
Regular cartoon. I can't even tell you. I can't even jolt back to a cartoon.
Oh my God. You gotta go home.
Let me think. I have to go home and watch some cartoon.
Watch Disney
Plus. Watch the cartoon. But it's so funny you ask me that because, I grew up watching Oprah. Like my mom would pick me up after school and we would watch Oprah every single afternoon. So I didn't really grow. I mean, I watched cartoons like Disney and Nickelodeon, but mostly
locked in on Oprah.
Yeah, locked in on Oprah. She's always been somebody that I've looked up to significantly, but I've always been drawn to that talk show type environment. Like we used to watch Ricky Lake and Dr. Phil before he was crazy and, all those things. So yeah, I can't even think of, I wish I could.
All right,
I
we'll
can't
go
even
Oprah
think
then.
Okay, Oprah.
All right.
Oprah, yes. Love it.
All right, you worked in automotive. Do you have a favorite car? Like, what's your favorite car?
It's so funny. I don't have, my dream car would be a Porsche Cayenne.
Okay.
However, I'm not like an automotive girly. Like if somebody came up to me and asked me how to, fix a flat tire, or even literally I had to go to Avis Ford yesterday to get washer fluid put in my car. Like I can't even do those very, very small things, but a Porsche Cayenne would be my dream vehicle.
Dope. And last but not least, what are you listening to right now?
Glorilla, like only Glorilla. I love Glow. I love Lotto. I love all the new women rappers that aren't necessarily new, but all the people that are getting the opportunity to emerge and really set the scene. Love Glow, love Lotto.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to you for successfully passing Freestyle Fridays.
Barely. I don't watch cartoons. It's going to drive me insane.
That's crazy.
My mom's going to be like, Geralyn, you don't watch cartoons when I call her home. She's like, yeah. But she's
she had you watch Oprah.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely talk show girl. And Lifetime movies. We love some Lifetime movies.
Exactly. Oh, man, that's hilarious. So the old network and Lifetime movies is what y'all watching. Okay.
Yes.
For sure. So, Geralyn, could you break down for us who would be an ideal client for you at Keeping It G?
Any client that believes in my message, honestly, at this point, I think that we're in an interesting state in the world. So I think any client that is pulled towards my message is a client that I would definitely want to work with. But I have various clients across insurance, across legal, across healthcare. So there's no industry that I'm unwilling to touch. Mm-hmm. I really want to work with clients that want to work with me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm somebody who's looking for your services and I want to be able to get better with self-advocacy, confidence, all those good things. What does the process look like to start working with you? So
go to my website, www.geralyngaines.com, and fill out the contact form. So there's a contact tab, and you just fill that out and we can begin from there. So you can fill out whether or not you want speaking, you want coaching, you want a workshop, and then I'll be reaching out to you. We would have a discovery call. So what you would do is you fill out the contact form. I'll be back. I'll get with you in the next 24 to 48 hours. And then I would schedule a discovery call. So I'd send you my calendar and we'd set something up.
Got it. And then just thinking out loud, in terms of, do you feel like it's more importance on people who look like us to leverage or to start to build that muscle of self-advocacy in the climate that we live in terms of DE&I programs and institutions kind of being defunded or deregulated from corporate America, from other places? Do you feel like it's more important now than any other time for people that look like us to make sure that, you are on top of your personal branding game, self-advocacy, et cetera?
It's such a great question, Denzel, because I thought about when I realized that the world was not headed in the direction that I thought it was headed in. I was really concerned about whether or not my message would still be relevant. Mm. But then I'm like, my message is more relevant than ever. No, just because DEI programs are being defunded and initiatives are being defunded does not mean the work is still the work. I saw one of the people that I follow, Minda Hart, she said something the other day that this is just semantics. It's so true, because that culture work is still there. So I think that this work is more important than ever. It's more of an opportunity for you to speak up because you don't want to get overlooked. Because I think now it's going to be a lot less regulated, people being done wrong. Yeah. Right? So this is an opportunity to really push and lean into that discomfort because you don't want to be left behind. Or just even push down lower and lower and lower. You still have to be visible. You have to have that brand. And it's interesting because I was talking to my mom a little bit before this because we're like, I wonder if we'll get into any political talk while we're here. But when Kamala Harris made her concession speech at Howard and did not cry, I was so impressed just by that level of strength. Like, that's a level of strength that we all need to tap into, that you can be in a situation that seems impossible and you still have to show up and be your best. Mm. So I think that it is essential to lean into this discomfort because we will get left behind. And the thing is too, even though that was a huge loss, like, Black folks are still advancing. At the end of the day, we're still making progress. It felt like a huge slap in the face, but I know our people, and we're gonna fight, and we are going to continue to push the envelope. And I think that it's important for everybody that's feeling lost or feeling broken to know that you have a community around you, and there are a bunch of pillars within our community that are pushing this work forward, and they're not letting some defunding of DEI, stop them from doing what they're supposed to be doing, because this work still matters. You still deserve a seat at the table. You still deserve to be heard. You still deserve to be valued. Period.
That's huge.
Yeah,
that's huge. So either turn it up in terms of your effort yourself, or help somebody turn up who is actually on the front lines doing the work.
I like that you said that, because helping somebody else, because I've seen in corporate, not too many times, but where Black folks may feel like they've made it and they don't necessarily reach back and help the younger folks, right? Because they're like, oh, I have to work hard, so you have to work just as hard. Right. That is not cool. Yeah. Not cool at all. You should be setting up that next generation to be successful, because we're going to be fighting totally different fights.
We fighting your battle soon.
Fighting your battle. Yeah. And it's interesting, because when I talked about how we had that session with the West Market area when I was at Ford, there were people that were so grateful that I had pushed to get us we ended up getting a redo for our general manager to do it better. And they were like, I'm so glad you had them do that, because this is the first time in my 30 plus years of working at Ford that I felt that I could speak up. And here I am, a young person liberating an elder, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, elders, me, but a seasoned employee. I mean, she was pretty old, but you know what I'm saying? Like, seasoned. She wasn't that old. She was still working, right? But no, she was saying like how much I set her free by speaking up. Right. So it's like, you never know who else you are freeing by speaking up. So I just, do not let this time discourage you. It is a weird time. It is an icky time, and we will get through it. Honestly, I mean, I'm sure none of us thought we were getting through the pandemic, right? But we're here 5 years later with no masks and no coughing. So it's really, really important to know that your voice, it's your voice, your power, it still matters. I mean, just think about all of our ancestors. You think Harriet Tubman thought that, she was going to be able to, I mean, just think about it. Like, think about people who we
these
think
dogs ain't about to stop me.
Right, right. I mean, we have martyrs in our community that have literally died for our rights to vote. I mean, think about that level of tenacity, that level of dedication to make things right. We need to lean into that energy of our ancestors. That's what I think. And if y'all haven't been to the African American Smithsonian Museum in DC, all y'all need to go. That'll help you that really helped me. Both times that I've gone, it's like a jolt of energy to know that people in our past, our ancestors, have pushed so hard for us to even sit here today on this podcast. So tap into your history.
Amen. For the ancestors.
For the ancestors. Yes. We are their wildest dreams. That is the thing.
There we go.
Yep.
There we go. Yeah. So could you explain to us, stepping out to leaving corporate, do full-time entrepreneurship, could you explain to us how you started to build your business? Like, how did you build out your structure?
Yes. As I mentioned, it's so important to have strong relationships. A good friend of mine who I met while I was at Ford, he happened to send me, first of all, he's always looked out. So like I said earlier, making sure that you have your board of directors, he has always looked out and has always believed in me. He sent me a link to an event that was in DC. We live here in Michigan. He sent me a link to DC for this group called Impact 11, which is a speaker accelerator. And I was like, okay, I'd not heard of them before. He sends it to me and he was like, you should go to this event. It was like an open house where speakers can just come and kick it and learn a little bit about the industry. And so I went and I pitched myself. I remember it's like my first pitch that I had ever done I didn't know it was even keeping it G at the time. But I share that because that opened up the doors for me, because here I am in a situation with some of the best speakers in the industry, as well as the best speaker support. So we had people who had worked at bureaus and people that were agents in the room, teaching us exactly what it means to be successful and how to be successful in this business. And I ended up joining that group, did the open house, went to one of their boot camps, and I literally came away from that boot camp with the 8 things that I needed to do to launch my business. So that was getting a speaker reel, that was making sure my website was legit, making sure that I had, accurate and up-to-date headshots. They literally gave me a list of things to do to launch it well. So making sure that you're also investing in professional development, because that was quite an investment, but also don't jump at everything either. I know I have some speaker friends that jump at every single opportunity. Let me just get on this stage and let me talk to this person, and this person asked me this, so I'm going to say yes. protect your energy, protect your space. Don't go broke trying to start a business, because it does cost. And that's the thing is, I think I didn't realize how much money it would cost to start a business. Yeah. So make sure that you have some money set aside to start it, but also don't jump at everything. Know what works for you, but also put yourself in rooms where you know that you're meant to be. Because Impact 11 has just been crazy helpful in me starting my journey, but it's also, I get to meet awesome speakers, people that are, talking to Oprah, people that are, on stages with Simon Sinek, the people that I need to be around so that I can learn from them. But also, degrees, how many degrees of separation I need to be between me and the person that I potentially want to be on my couch one day.
Right.
Making sure that, listen to the wise ones in your life. This person that I'm talking about, he is a very, very wise person, has always looked out. And if somebody sends you a tip, just take it. Somebody that you trust send you a tip, take it seriously and pursue it if you feel like it's worth pursuing.
So I want to go back more into your, you being in the space of self-advocacy and wanted to know, for you, what do you feel like was your defining moment in being able to be a better self-advocate for yourself, and then start that pathway to being able to identify how you can leverage that for your career, things that you want to do in life, and then also starting to teach others? So what was that defining moment that made you feel like I've arrived in terms of advocating for yourself?
It's kind of a long story. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
that's what we're here for.
It's kind of a long story because I did not know. I've always been a very convicted person, like what's right, what's wrong. And it wasn't until I got to Providence College my freshman year, I was playing volleyball there, that I knew that I needed to do something different. I was super excited to get, play at a D1 school. I had gone to my official visit. Everything was going great, but I knew on day 3 of preseason that it wasn't for me. That was my first time really being othered in that way. I went to a high school where differences were celebrated. It was super diverse. I went to Detroit Country Day. And so we had a lot of support for diversity and inclusion. And that was the first time that I was like a fish out of water in an environment where I'm the only. And, this is before everybody even gets to campus. So it's me, my team, and all the other teams that are there. So it's softball, it's lacrosse, it's hockey. And, they're not really diverse sports either. So I remember though, day 3 of preseason, I'm like, okay, I just felt like it wasn't a good fit, not just because of being other, but the way that I was being treated because I was other. And I actively tried to figure out, okay, how can I finish the season, which I did, but I knew at the end of the season and coming back from break that I was done. And I remember having to go to my coach, who was is a huge bully, and telling her that I was done. Like, hey, I'm transferring. Thanks so much for your time, but this is no longer working for me. And I remember she started crying, and I was just like, how, it really is the white girl tears for me. But I have to be honest about that, because that's a real thing. Is I am expressing how I'm feeling about being othered, and you're crying at my response. That's not really fair. And so I'm glad I was able to handle that in that moment. But I let her know, I was like, hey, I gotta get out of here. I'm done. And that was really the first moment where I was able to have a conversation like that without my parent being in the room or my parent helping me advocate. So it was really that moment when I'm like, okay, I don't have to stay in spaces that I don't feel like I'm wanted or places I don't want to be in. So I transferred to U of M. That's how we met, which was awesome, right. And loved my time at U of M. But I remember it was Labor Day weekend. We found out about this hood ratchet party that's being thrown on Frat Row. And we started to start hashtag BBUM, Being Black at University of Michigan. And then that went viral. And I really realized in those moments, because, being boots on the ground activists at that time, it felt like, we were really doing it. I really felt like we were really doing it. We had the ears of the administration, but when you go out into the real world, that's not necessarily, a thing. Mm-hmm. Obviously Michigan's known for all these years, decades and decades of activism. So I felt like that was celebrated just amongst my peers in the Black community, but it became difficult when we were talking to administration about why we need a Trotter Multicultural Center on Central Campus, why we need to have accessible scholarships for folks that need emergency scholarships, things like that. So when I had that support around me, I'm like, oh, we can really fight. We can really do something. And then as I saw things starting to come true, like them building a new Trotter after we had graduated and everything, I'm like, oh, you can push the envelope and still get things done. I think people oftentimes don't see if they don't see, I guess, their desires being fulfilled, they don't see it as progress. And even though we didn't get everything that we wanted on those seven demands lists, I mean, we got a lot of it done. So I felt like we made so much progress. And that also helped me with advocacy, because I wasn't just speaking up for me. Obviously, I felt like #BB1 was important, but it was for the entire community. I want everybody to feel celebrated on this campus, because people always say, oh, Michigan's so diverse. It's really not. I think when we were there, it's 4.2% Black folk.
Yeah.
It's not. It simply is not. And so advocacy became just such a part of my life, and I felt really protected and really supported, and like we were really doing something. But then when I got to corporate America, where nobody cares about any of the stuff that I did about at Michigan, fighting, protesting, all these things, that was a huge culture shock for me. And so I had to, I wouldn't say keep quiet about it, but I just didn't talk about it. I just didn't talk about it. I didn't feel like anybody would receive it well, or I mean, I guess to it didn't matter at that time, but I wasn't in an environment my first year in corporate America that was welcoming, that was diverse.
Right.
And so I just kept it cool, because I'm like, I don't want to lose my job. Let me just,
it's one of those situations where you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And you know that when people aren't really rocking with it either, right? Correct. So I could sense that don't bring that
Black stuff up in here.
Exactly. Do not bring that Black stuff in here, because that literally is it. And we're talking about George Floyd. It wasn't until George Floyd was murdered that we had the opportunity as Black folks in the field to discuss how we felt as Black folks in America. And I remember our general manager at the time, he was responsible for Philadelphia, Boston, DC, and New York. He completely bombed the first iteration of, hey, let's have like a talk where everyone can share, how they're feeling. And I felt like he talked all around what was going on. He's like, all the things that are going on in the world, and things are so tough. And I'm like, he didn't mention George Floyd's name once. Didn't talk about the fact that it was a murder. Nothing. Literally did. I got off the phone. I'm like, what was he even talking about? And so I made it. This is my advocacy. My advocacy had to kick in, because I learned that the West Market area was going to have a similar call. So this is like Denver, LA, Seattle, and Phoenix. They were having a similar call, and I know that their general manager was probably going to handle it a little bit differently. And he invited us. And when I tell you, like, there were so many tears, it was one of the most powerful days I've had in corporate America, because I was able to just share what was on my mind and how bad we were all really hurting. And literally from that day, Denzel, I was like, I'm never, ever not speaking up again, because I had spent 5 years being cool and getting along with everybody and being chill. But I'm like, you all are going to see what we go through. This is something that we deal with every single day. And it's unfortunate that people took that moment and they saw it as that, but these are still our daily struggles. So I would say that was the defining moment for me in my professional career, that I was like, I got to do this.
That's huge. And you went from, in terms of personal, from your time at Providence College to what led you up into professional, and then even back when we met each other at Michigan, and being able to have those stops along the way. Yeah. So given those experiences, in your opinion, why do you feel like people don't, especially more so in the Black community, advocate for themselves in a business setting, in a corporate setting, and why we kind of shy away from those opportunities? Because
it is scary. And I think Black folks also are in fear of retribution, right? You don't want to be retaliated against because you spoke up about something. I can understand that wholeheartedly, especially now that I'm in my own career. But I mean, one of the reasons why I left Ford, which I know we'll talk about, is because I found my passion for public speaking. But another reason was because I was speaking up for things that I thought was right when it came to my professional development, my psychological safety, at times my physical safety. And it fell on deaf ears. And I knew in that moment that it was time for me to move on, right? So if I'm saying that my psychological safety is at risk, my physical safety is also at risk, you all need to be figuring out a way to accommodate me, right? Because I was dealing with old bullies, new bullies, and things. So here I am, I hit my stride with finding my passion. At the same time, I'm ascending into my purpose. I had people trying to beat me down. And so I can see why people don't want to pop out. That they don't want to express, their skills. They don't want to share everybody. They don't want to play all their cards because they're worried about what other people will do to them. And I think that's why we don't do it, is because it's scary and you wonder, do people have my back, and you have a lack of trust. But I also have to say that there are people in corporate that you can trust. You just have to find them. Gotcha. But also be very methodical and logical and pragmatic about building that relationship, because you don't always know people's intentions.
Yeah, it's the game within the game.
It is. And it's important to I always say this, to have Black mentors, obviously, but it's really important to have non-Black mentors in corporate, especially people that are, I mean, it's unfortunate because a lot of people that look like us are not in those decision-making rooms. Right. And so you need to make sure that you are linked up with somebody who is in those rooms. It's really important.
So on the other side of that coin, we just talked about why people don't necessarily advocate for themselves that look like us. What are some ways that people can, based on your experiences, what you do for your business? Like, what are some of, like, if you could give us a list, 3 to 5 of the most important ways you can start to advocate for yourself?
Yep. So I help clients build confidence, improve communication, and foster strong relationships. So when we're talking about confidence, we're talking about identifying our strengths. What are we good at? What are we best at? What are our capabilities? What are our skills? And then improving communication. How can I articulate those things that I just mentioned and articulate them to the right person that can help me get to where I need to go? And those fostering strong relationships. Who are those people? Who are those people that can influence your personal and professional development? And who are those people? So I think it's definitely those 3. It's building confidence, improving communication, and fostering strong relationships. You just need to know what you're good at, what your value is, what you bring to the table, and who can help you get there.
And how do you start to discover those things? Because let's say you're just stuck and you're like, I don't know what my gifts are, I don't know what my talents are, I just show up at work. Like, how do you figure that out?
You know, I always see that as a cop-out. I think people are not willing to look inward and see what they're really good at. I'm in situations a lot where I'm training and we'll just do like, quick intros, just say your name, where you're from, and what you're, and something unique about you. And people feel like they can't come up with something that's unique about them. And then it makes me sad because I'm like, do you feel like you're not unique? So I think that there are things as simple as taking the Clifton Strengths assessment. You can do Myers-Briggs. You can do, there's so many different quizzes out there. One of my favorite people that I follow right now, Jenny Clark, has a leadership quiz that you can identify what your strengths are. So just things as simple as online quizzes can figure out, okay, are you a good communicator? Are you really great at leadership? Are you great at, rooting people on? There are specific competencies that you'll be able to identify to see what your strengths are. So things as simple as that, but also ask people around you, what do you think I'm good at? I remember when I was trying to start my business and I didn't really know that hadn't identified the term self-advocacy just yet. I knew that I wanted people to speak up for themselves and get out of their own way, but I hadn't quite identified that word yet. I think it's just really important to have people around you that can help you get there. Like my brand strategist, she and I were working like vigorously trying to figure, okay, what's my word? What's my word? What's my word? And we came up with that. It was perfect, but it wasn't until she gave me that push that I could think even deeper about what that very quick one word, what's 2 words, but what that quick self-advocacy tip was. It really helps when you ask people, what do you think I'm good at?
Now, let me ask you about that, because that's one thing because I had a cousin that did that for her birthday. I think it was the milestone birthday approaching. And she was asking people, like, what do you think I'm good at? Like, and just like a mini survey. She texted out to people. Shout out to my cousin Ebony. And she had, I was just curious as to how you always kind of wonder, how do people perceive me, or like, how do people perceive me versus what reality is, in a sense of, for example, if the reason I haven't done it yet myself is because I feel like if I reach out to folks, they gonna regurgitate to me the stuff that like I put out there versus like telling me like, no, you good at X, Y, and Z. And I got people, it's a cop out, I'll let you know right now. I got people that will keep it real with me and tell me, but I'm just saying, like, in general, I feel like it's some people, some folks I might send it to and they might be like, well, you do X, Y, and Z, don't you? Like, well, that's your thing.
Right.
But I'm like, I kind of need more than that. Like, so that, I don't know. I would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's important so that's one thing I've definitely learned now that I'm on my own, is that people will give you unsolicited advice every single day of the week, especially people who can never do what you do. They will tell you exactly how to do something that they can never do. Is that true? Isn't that true? You cannot listen to everybody. I've had situations recently where it's sad because when you're stepping into your purpose, you may lose friends. You may lose friends. You may lose people in your village because they may not believe in what you got going on, or they wish they could do what you're doing. So I think it's really important to identify those people who you trust in your circle. Like, there are only certain people, the people that you go to for certain things. Like, I know exactly who I go to for my performance critiques. I know exactly who I go to for whatever I've written to critique that. I have a professional coach. I ask my parents before I go on stage. I always like run my speech across my parents, be like, hey, what did you think? Or even a friend. I need feedback because I want to make sure that when I'm going out my best. So make sure you identify the people that you trust that also have your back and want to see you like win long term. Because a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, you're doing great. But like are secretly like preying on your downfall. Make sure, but you know it's true.
Unfortunately,
you know it's true. I mean, I had a situation in corporate America where I had somebody actively trying to ruin my reputation with the executives and things. I mean, success is the best revenge. It's funny because I actually thought I was going to address her at some point, but the way that her life is looking, the way that my life is looking, sometimes you just don't need it, right? Sometimes you just don't need it. So just making sure that you can't trust everybody. Even just be very mindful of who you have around you and only go to certain people for certain things. You don't have to ask like, I'm not going to go around and be like, okay, well, mom and dad, how was that specific section of my keynote? And then I go around asking specific other people about the specific section. They haven't heard the entire thing. Like I'm not going to change it just because a random person said, hey, this is what you think. You have to have discernment about what you're going to listen to and what you're going to apply. Because I had a situation recently where somebody came up to me giving me unsolicited feedback about my website. And I'm like, look at your website. It just really, you just cannot listen to everything. I mean, don't tell you're laughing because
I'm laughing because true. I've had people tell me like, you should do X, Y, and Z. You need to have so-and-so on the podcast and never listen to an episode.
Right.
Don't even know what the show is about.
Right.
Yeah. So that's
and
why
it's just like, you can never do what I do. And you are not either you're not willing or you maybe don't have, everyone has their own thing. So I think people need to identify what their thing is and just stay in your own lane and identify the people that you can trust and that you can get the genuine feedback from.
So you kind of got to categorize your feedback in terms of the people you go to. And
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if I listen to especially now that, my brand is me. So if I listen to everybody about, okay, what you said on that or what you said on this, or I don't have time for that. I'm putting out content and it lives out in the world in perpetuity, right? I can't go back. I can't reshoot. This is representing me. So you have to move on. But no, I definitely have, what they say, like your board of directors, but I have the people that I look to for specific things. Just even think about your friends. There are some friends that you can cry to and some friends that you cannot cry to, right? There are some friends that you can tell all your business to and some friends that you may not tell all your business to. Yeah. You just have to have discernment. You
got to know.
Yeah, you have to know.
Like you had mentioned having a board of directors. Shout out to why am I blanking right now? Oh, shout out to Gail Perry Mason. She came out here and she talked about having your internal board of directors. She's like, I got a board of directors. They might not even, or mentors. They might not even know they my mentors, but like they are my counsel, so to speak. Like
GPM's a real one.
Yeah,
that's a real one right there.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, she said something similar to that, and so it takes a lot of confidence and self-advocacy to step out and create your own thing, and that's what you've done with becoming a speaker, keeping it G, and so forth. So I would love to know if you could talk to us about what made you. So the self-advocacy piece is one thing, and then being able to coach and teach people about that and consult. But in terms of actually going and doing keynotes, like you had dropped in there, you do keynotes, going to do keynotes and speaking and possibly going on tour or being in those type of environments.
On tour, y'all hear that? Y'all hear that? I'm going on tour.
We're gonna speak that into existence. But doing stuff like that, that's a different skill set. So like, how did that become a thing? Did you always aspire to be speaking on stages or speaking in keynotes and stuff like that, or was that something that kind of came with the territory?
It's interesting. It came to me. It was the weirdest thing. I always thought that I was going to retire in somebody's C-suite and just call it a day. And I was going to be cool with that. I love customer experience. It would have been awesome to retire as somebody's chief customer experience officer. But it wasn't until it's interesting because I thought I was in my dream job in 2022. I have a huge passion for hospitality, and I was hosting these huge dealer events for some of our largest, most impactful dealers for dealers, and then alongside our chief customer experience officer at the time and some other executives. And then I was also managing an intimate circle where we were meeting with other her counterparts. So the chief customer experience officer's counterparts in travel, in retail, in insurance and the like. And I was like, this is everything I want to be doing. Like, here I am, being exposed to these major brands and curating these beautiful meetings, going to these, phenomenal locations, meeting just awesome people. And I remember I was planning a trip to Dubai, so salty about this. Well, it was salty, not salty anymore, but I was planning a trip to Dubai for the Global Dealer Round. So the title was Global Dealer Roundtable and Customer Experience Advisory Board Manager, long title. But I was planning this trip to Dubai for Global Dealer Roundtable, And this was at the end of 2022. And I'm learning that they're looking at me for another job that's a lateral move. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I need another move. But I also advocated for myself and saying I wanted presentation skills. I wanted to manage people because I knew that those things were going to be required for me to, get promoted. And so they were able to give me that opportunity. But the cost was that I can no longer go to Dubai, which I think looking back at it now, I would be honest, everybody. I was heartbroken when that was taken away from me twice. I was told I could go, got taken away from me. Told I could go again, got taken away from me. And a lot of people that look like us don't get those opportunities to plan events in Dubai. Like it was such a big thing to take away from somebody like me but now I'm just like, okay, now I'm limitless, so it doesn't matter. But I think that leaders really need to look at the opportunities that they may be giving somebody that may never have that chance. Like, I'm going to go to Dubai in my life, but to plan an event alongside our chief customer experience officer in Dubai, it was something that I was like beyond my wildest dreams because I wanted to always have an international assignment with Ford. And then when it didn't happen, they put me into this job. It's called Ford Guest Experience Immersion Manager. And I was hosting one of our biggest Ford dealer events in the nation. So we would bring dealers to headquarters and talk to them about how to treat guests like family. So it was a customer experience event. It was awesome. But I was the moderator, hosting all the things, but I did not know that I had a passion for speaking or that I even had the talent into our first rehearsal for the show. So we had 16 shows that year. I remember we were in our supplier's office and they had like a teleprompter up and everything because we had teleprompter. It's a full production. And I remember doing my first pass and I was like, oh, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, it was like the weirdest calm came over me that I never felt more at home than speaking. Like, it was the weirdest thing. And I was in a group with my team. It was probably like 7 or 8 of them. And one of our MC who we hired, he was saying that, he said, Geralyn, this is gonna be the hardest room that you ever rehearse in front of because everybody here knows you. He's like, but just think about, when you're on stage tomorrow, when we speak to all these strangers, he's like, they don't know you. So, just do your best, but people don't know whether or not you've messed up, if you missed a point or content or anything like that. He's like, this will be the hardest stage that you've been on. And he was so right about that. Aside from the point where I actually had to speak in front of a whole bunch of professional speakers, but that was it. That was when I found my passion. And then from there, we started producing shows and we had keynotes come to speak at our events to close them out. And I saw how much money they got paid for 60 minutes to speak to dealers. And I'm like, I am in the wrong place.
Like, sign me up.
Sign me up because, being in corporate, you're always trying to see, okay, how can I get a raise? How can I get the max of my bonus? How can I get a promotion? And I was solely focused on, how can I ascend? And I realized that my impact was so much greater than getting a promotion. Like, I can really influence people with my message. And I see people that we hire to come in and do it. I'm like, I can do what they do. Right. And I want to do what they do. Right. And so
I want to tell you some of the stuff I've seen on corporate stages where I'm like, y'all literally paid for this. You could have gave me half the budget and I had this place jumping. But go ahead. Yeah.
But you're so right. And so, when I tell you, I did not know, and I've learned now that I'm in it, it's a $6 billion industry. So every association has a conference. Every single group, they have conferences and they need speakers to close out the conferences, or they need workshop facilitators. So when it became very clear to me that the math was literally not mathing, I'm like, here I am trying to bust my butt to get above and beyond my bonus, and my bonus, that little percentage is nothing near what that person just made for 60 minutes. I'm like, it's just not making sense. So I decided to actively build my speaking practice. And I was also looking for a job, a different job. So I've been at Ford for 9 years, knew it was my time to go. It just didn't feel right anymore, similar like to the Providence situation. Just not being celebrated in the way that I felt like I should have been celebrated and not having the support. And so, it was time for me to go. So I decided in June that it was time for me to move on. And I had been looking for a job for 10 months, just while I was still working, but looking for a job. And things were not coming to fruition. I was actually pretty shocked because, I have a good network and, I've been at Ford for 9 years. And I just thought, not to say I thought things were going to happen for me overnight, but I didn't think it would take 10 months to literally end up with nothing. And so I ended up taking a leave from Ford in May. And that allowed me to really figure out what my next move was. And then that's how I decided to start keeping it G and go into consulting and coaching.
Got you.
Yeah.
And in terms of speaking and doing keynotes, how do you even craft a keynote? Like, what's the speaker's secrets in case somebody wants to start working on that themselves?
Yes, I wouldn't say there's a secret, you all. There's no getting around writing a speech. It takes a long time. I want to say right now, my keynotes probably close to 40 pages of just, me pumping out content. But it's important to obviously have an intro, conclusion, three points that you're trying to make. A lot of the speeches that you hear, people are saying the same exact thing that you've heard. It's just the way that they deliver the message.
Yeah.
There is an art to storytelling. So I think that if you start figuring out who are some of your favorite storytellers that you follow, like one of my favorites, Inky Johnson, Jeremy Anderson came to speak at Ford last Black History Month, completely changed my perspective about how I wanted to live my life. Mel Robbins. I mean, you have to really know who these experts are in the field and practice what see what they do. You can even Google or ChatGPT some of the best speeches ever written or ever spoken. And MLK, I Have a Dream. That's like the number one of all time.
Yeah.
So like you have to see people that are really doing it and doing it well. Even Barack Obama, a phenomenal, he's just a phenomenal speaker just in general. But find people that that are killing it and figure out what their secret sauce is. Because most of those people have written a book. Because that's one thing I've learned too, is that most speakers have books.
For sure.
And you can learn.
Exactly.
Learn all of that. But just same way that you would write a story, I would start with your keynote. But you have to pump it out, and it can take you a really long time. I mean, mine continues to evolve. I've been working on my keynote. I've delivered it a couple of times, but since May of last year. So it will evolve. But I also think that some people have multiple keynotes. I have one right now. Okay. I want to focus on one. I know what my message is, and you are buying this message. But some people have so many different topics that they want to focus on. And that's the thing is like you have to focus on what works for you.
Yeah.
What your strategy may not be my strategy and vice versa, but what works for me. So what works for me is I lock myself in a room for days and I pump out my keynote, I edit it, and then I send it to my performance coach, my writing coach. We practice and they give me feedback. That's how I oftentimes write my keynotes. But I do know that some speakers, they start off ChatGPT and say, hey, like what am I really trying to say here? That's one I do that ChatGPT a lot.
Brainstorm it and then write it.
Yes, I never use it for my speaking, but I mean, for day-to-day stuff, sometimes I'll just write something and put it in there, like, clean this up, or make this sound better.
Right.
It helps you get your juices flowing. So I know some speakers are leveraging ChatGPT as well.
For sure. I was going to ask you if you was doing that, but yeah.
Not for speaking. For consulting, yes, but not for speaking. Just because even though it's helpful, it's an assistant, I still want to write everything for myself. Okay. I want my own words, and I don't want anybody to say, oh, because she said ensure, because she said foster, that she saw it on ChatGPT. They have like those very key words that you can tell somebody used ChatGPT, or the dashes or whatever. So I always want to come off as super authentic because I just feel like that's how I live my life. Yeah.
What's your message right now, just in case somebody is curious as to or would like to work with you and have you come in and do a keynote for them?
Yeah, my keynote, it's about your voice, your power. That is my tagline. I truly believe it. No matter what setting you're in, I think that people who are in professional settings and personal settings, your voice is your avenue to getting the things that you want and to forging the relationships that you need in order to be successful. So it's your voice, your power, and keeping it G.
Keeping it G. Speaking of that, what can people expect if I come to Keeping It G, what can I expect to get out of working with you?
Yeah, you can expect a very high energy experience, very professional experience. I'm very timely, communicative, and flexible. I think it's really important as a speaker to understand the needs of the client as well as the audience and apply that feedback. I'm never going to come into a client and be like, okay, here's my self-advocacy talk, just live with it. Okay, maybe you've heard my talk before. Do you have any suggestions on what I should loop in? Or are there any specific pain points that you all have that I should loop into my speech, et cetera, et cetera? I think it's really important to be adaptable and flexible with clients. So yeah, I would say that that's the key.
Got it. And what do you want people, or in terms of people, this is very important, just overall self-advocacy. If you want to advance your career, if you want to do anything really in general in life, it goes beyond corporate America.
Absolutely.
Entrepreneurship, things like that. Just being able to be confident in yourself, stand up for the things that you believe in, and be able to have those type of values. Do you have any success stories of people that you have worked with, or have any projects that you worked on where you were able to see that change in confidence, that change or that growth in terms of being able to better advocate for themselves, organizations, institutions, people? You got any examples of that?
Yeah. People that I coach. I have one young lady who's phenomenal. It's interesting because now that I'm a coach, you can coach any type types of people. She is going to optometry school. Like I'm not a medical person. I'm none of that. So, but when I first got her, she lacked confidence. And over the past several months, I mean, she has gone exceedingly and abundantly above any of her own expectations. She is speaking up. She is being very clear. She's not letting anything get past her. She's really driving her own professional and personal journey. So it's like, I got her in the summer, then now, I mean, just night and day to see her, being uncertain about medical school and didn't know how to express that, to now she's going to her optometry school of her dreams. She's moving to Chicago. She's doing great. I mean, I just seen her blossom. It feels like overnight. So I think to just getting with people who can really help you identify your strengths and cheerlead for you. You have to have cheerleaders. You have to have cheerleaders. It's really important to getting people to where they need to go. So yeah, I've had a couple of success stories.
Love it. Love it. So what's in the crystal ball? What's next for Geralyn? What's next for Keeping It G?
Yeah.
What do you see on the horizon that you can share with us?
Yes, as many speaking opportunities as possible. So if y'all are looking for a keynote speaker, moderator, trainer, coach, all the things, I'm your girl. I love interviewing people. Have a couple of things coming up, some International Women's Day events. I'm speaking at Norfolk State this year, as well as Clark, Atlanta. I'm everywhere. So if anybody needs somebody to come and represent their brand really well, I'm definitely your girl. And like I said, I'm flexible.
I ain't hear podcasting there nowhere. So what's up with that?
You know what's so funny, Denzel, is that Keeping It G, the first iteration of Keeping It G was a podcast. So I literally was recording in a studio, my home studio with my friends, about dating. So as me and some of my girlfriends were talking about dating, and it wouldn't have aged well. So I'm so glad that I didn't post that. But yeah, no, I see a podcast in my future, not in the immediate future. Right now, I'm really focused on getting as many stages as possible and meeting and influencing as many people, because it's important. I need the visibility. I'm just now starting out. A lot of people as speakers, it's the word of mouth. All of my gigs right now have been from word of mouth. So I need to get to a point where somebody sees me. Oh, Geralyn, like I know her. She said XYZ. She's, self-advocacy thought leader. I want to be that recognizable where people are like, oh, I know what she's about.
Got you. And then leave us with a thought-provoking message of, it can be self-advocacy. It could just be pure motivation, whatever is on your mind and on your heart that you can share with people to go out there and get after it.
Yep. Get out of your own way, because it's your voice. It's your power.
Clean, smooth. Yeah.
We're done.
Well, thank you, Geralyn, for stopping by the podcast today. Before we get up out of here, can you please let the people know how they can get in contact with you? Website, social media handles, all that good stuff. Yes,
www.geralyngaines.com. Also, on Instagram, it's at Geralyn Gaines, Keeping It G. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Geralyn-Gaines.
Perfect. Well, everybody watching, everybody listening, make sure that you tap in, continue to subscribe to the podcast, send this to a friend, and then like and drop a comment as well. So appreciate y'all tapping in. We're going to talk to y'all soon. Peace.
Thank you.